What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo, and we're gonna be talking about the Miami Heat so far. Now, this is the team that I think I've been a notorious hater of. At least, from my friends, they've been saying, "Yo, I'm a hater of this team," and honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I have been, but I think that this year is actually a really big surprise for me. I did not think that they were gonna be down this much this year, and I want to talk about whether or not they could bounce back. So yeah, let's just let's just get into it. Excuse me. Now, they're probably one of the best or the worst offensive teams. The fact that they're like 29th in scoring, but they're still like one of the better offenses, at least compared to like the worst ones, is actually kind of crazy. But there are a couple things to really look at when it comes to this team. Kyle Lowry is starting to look really, really bad. Like, it's starting to become concerning. And, Kyle Lowry is one of those guys where you just don't look at the numbers and be like, oh, yeah, this is definitely how good he is. I don't think that that's the case, but usually when you're like averaging less than 40% from the field, you kind of see like something's wrong. Like, something's wrong. That being said, he is taking more threes than he is not. So that's the reason why his true shooting percentage isn't going to be like the worst ever. Looking at his true shooting percentage, he's shooting like average, but like even then, you kind of see his 2 point percentage, and it's like, a guy like Jimmy Butler has been coasting, and even though I would definitely say that Jimmy Butler coasting is not like the best thing, you do want to preserve your best for the playoffs. But the thing is, I'm not sure if this team is going to make the playoffs. Looking at the whole thing. Oh, by the way, I recorded this right after the Sacramento Kings video, so that's the reason why you're going to see some of those stats. But looking at some of these teams in the East, like these are probably like pure. Oh, nah, I'm not trying to do that. But I think that these teams are just pure lock-ins at this point, and not Washington. But I think that these teams are just pure locks, only because they just been one of the more consistent teams in the NBA, at least so far in the East. The Brooklyn Nets are also a team that could make it. Like Ben Simmons has actually been putting up some numbers recently. So looking at like how he's been playing recently, I would say that there's a good chance that he may be like coming into fruition on this offense. But again, I'm not really that sure about the Brooklyn Nets. But even teams like, I would say, the Chicago Bulls, the New York Knicks. Knicks have actually been looking really solid. Like Julius Randle has actually been having like a really, really good year, and no one's been talking about it. Not as good as his like 2020 campaign, 2021 campaign, but like it's still really cool to see. Even a guy like Jalen Brunson has been pretty like solid. Even though this team isn't like shooting the best, they are still one of the better defenses of the league, which is kind of, well, actually they're not. Honestly, I don't know how they're winning games. I don't know how they're winning games. I don't know, but they are. They're probably gonna drop like probably later, but right now they're still winning games. The Washington Wizards are somehow winning games. I don't know how. Oh, they're one of the better defenses. Again, some of these teams I haven't been watching that much. Like I would say that there are definitely some favorites that I have. I've been watching like the Cavaliers a lot more. Been watching more of like Boston. Even though I haven't been like the biggest fan of them, I've actually been watching the Golden State Warriors a little bit. But yeah, some of these teams I just haven't been watching. But the Indiana Pacers are actually one of the better offenses of the league, and it comes from these three, bro. Like these guys are like insane. I don't get it. I don't get it. But let me check one thing real quick. But all that is to say that like, the competition is starting to become like really steep at this point. We're about to be a quarter into the season, and a lot of things could happen after the All Star break. That's when all the trades happen. That's when all the kind of bigger moves, even just like fitting on the roster together, happens. Also, I don't know what the heck that is about, but yeah. Now look at this whole thing, bro. Like they are just not the best. Now, just looking at a little bit more of their players, Bam Adebayo has actually been really solid. The only thing is he's been averaging like a lot of fouls, and whether or not you think that those are BS fouls, I'm not sure. But like you gotta like calm it down, because if I'm not mistaken, yeah, they still are one of the more disciplined teams, but this is like OD. Now, Max Strus has actually been averaging really, really good numbers, honestly. And that's actually really cool to see, because honestly, this team does really lack shooting the ball that well, because, they're averaging like, 24%, or the 24th team in the league in terms of percentage. And, it's really bad to see. They just don't have like the volume shooters that they used to have, or at least not nearly as consistently as they did. Even a guy like Debo is averaging less than 31%, which is like really concerning. And considering that this team is a team full of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I think that they need to make a trade. I think that they are literally just a trade away from having a bounce back season. Now, if I were to say who they would trade for, it would definitely have to be like a floor spacer, probably a 4-2, because they are actually one of the worst teams in terms of rebounding, and that's kind of what really set them apart. This defensive rebound percentage was actually a lot higher, if I'm not mistaken. It was either defensive rebounding or offensive rebounding that they were actually a lot higher in last year, especially when like a guy like PJ Tucker and Bam were on the floor together. Let me just look at it. Yeah, they were a lot better in terms of defensive rebounding percentage, and offensive rebounding percentage. They were also a lot better. So that's also a really big concern for this team. I would definitely say that a good trade target for them is Harrison Barnes. He provides a lot of shooting that this team could use, even though he's having a really down year so far. He's also a rebounder. Well, he's an all right rebounder. I won't say he's like the best, but I still think that he's also like kind of decent. But another cool trade target that this team could get is probably a combination of some of Indy's best players. Well, some of their players. Let me not say their best, but I think a deal with these two would actually be really great. This kind of solves the 3-point problem. I think that this team could really just use a lot of Buddy Yield, and Miles Turner could also help with the rebounding problem, which I think that this team could also kind of use. Now the only thing is, I'm not sure if their contracts actually make, like, I don't think that they can actually make a trade with those contracts. Yeah, they would have to throw in like someone like Debo and like a couple picks, but I think that they should probably make this trade. Even though Bam Adebayo is probably more like a center, I think that this team would probably just benefit from just having two bigs on the floor. Even though Bam Adebayo is probably like he's not undersized necessarily, but he's like 6'9". He's like LeBron's height. Just putting that into perspective, I think that he could play like power forward spot like a little well, but overall, I do think that this team does need another like bigger rebounder, bigger guy to just cause havoc on the boards. This team just really needs it. Shooting is another problem. Overall, I think that this move would also make it so that this team has a better future going forward, because I think that a guy like Kyle Lowry has been what they really wanted them to have, and trying to away Kyle Lowry, and in my opinion, one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and Duncan Robinson, at least as of right now, I think that's probably going to be what they really need to do at this point. Kyle Lowry is going to be making like a ton of money next year, and you really don't want to see it. You really don't want to see it like that, bro. But what else is there to talk about with this team? Let's just talk about their schedule, actually, because I haven't really looked at it, so it'll be my reaction to it. I think that their schedule really does, help with a lot of their things, because, taking 2 L's, like, at the very beginning of the season was not a really good sign, because I'm pretty sure, what's his name? The coach. Eric Spoelstra. I don't know why I blanked out his name, but Eric Spoelstra's first loss in an opener was actually that game. I'm pretty sure that game was at home, so I think that was his like first loss at home for an opener. So yeah, but like the 4-L streak is not really that is like actually terrible. I'm not gonna lie, but if I were to look at the schedule, like they're playing like these are all, in my opinion, top 10 player teams in the NBA. Like, this is gonna get like rough really soon, but in my opinion, if they were to look at like some of these teams, like I think that a team like the Pistons, they need to take care of the San Antonio Spurs, Indiana Pacers, and even teams like the Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs again. Like, these teams are just teams that they have to take care of, because they have a really rough stretch, because the Washington Wizards have been playing like really solid defense like they did last year, at least for the beginning of the season, and it's really hard for them to really just come back from being this down in the standings, at least for right now. They're like, what, the 1 seed already this year, or in this part of the season, so it's really, really, really concerning. And I was shocked by JCPenney, so I don't know why I'm seeing that. But even then, like, they are probably going to have like a really, really rough stretch after. Like, this is probably their roughest stretch in the whole season, because they're going to be playing against, like, after like this They have another month, and it's gonna be against some of the best teams in the NBA, like consecutively too. Like the these are like all well, actually not the Lakers, but like these are all in my top 10 teams in this year. Then we have teams like the Milwaukee Bucks. They face off against them in a back-to-back away, and they're playing against the, or no, they're playing against them at home, but they're playing against the Atlanta Hawks, New Orleans Pelicans. Again, these are all top half teams in the NBA. That they play against Boston again. Then they get a few like breaks. These are actually one of the worst teams in the NBA right now, but they're going to be playing against the Cavaliers. So I'm really concerned about whether or not this team is going to be, excuse that, but I'm not. I'm really concerned about whether or not this team is going to bounce back in terms of whether or not they are going to just have like the roster, the health, the talent to really just be one of the better teams to really just make a playoff run. Even I'm not even sure if this team is going to make a run to be in the playoffs before the trade deadline, because like this team is just going to be playing off against like some of the dogs in like these next couple of months. Like these are like all horrible. Like these are all like really tough games that they have to play, and this is all within like the first month of the NBA, like or the first half of the NBA, and they just have to like tee up because like around this time is going to be the trade deadline, and if they aren't able to really just make a move by the trade deadline, I think that this team may be a little bit hopeless. But yeah, I think that's been it for me. Overall, my like consensus thought is that I think that this team has enough to really make a run, but at the same time, if they don't make a run as soon as possible, it's going to be really hard for this team to bounce back to the team that we already are accustomed to. You know, they made two Eastern Conference Finals in the last 3 years. I think that they could really just repeat that performance. But the thing is, it's going to be hard for them to do that when they're facing against some of the better teams in the NBA for the first half of the season. And not only that, their schedule's super rough. Not only that, but they just aren't having the kind of success that they had in the previous years. You know, they were one of the better shooting teams in the NBA last year. Look at it; they're the number one percentage, and now they're the number what? They're like the 20th percentage, like something crazy like that. So yeah, it's been your boy Nehemiah, aka Neo. Right now, I would sell all my stock on the Miami Heat.